and welcome. Today I would like to talk a bit about Połonka 1660 game, and I'm going to play first scenario of this game. First, maybe a bit about the battle itself, because I bet that most of you never heard about it. Since 1654, Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth was involved in the devastating war against Sweden. In the same time, Russia attacked the Commonwealth from the east and captured the big part of the Grand Duchy of Lithuania. Since 1660, when Poland managed to defeat Sweden, Polish and Lithuanian armies started to reclaim the lost territories at the east. Połonka was one of the most important battles of this campaign because Lithuanian army, supported by the Polish forces, managed to defeat a big army of Russia and started to successfully drive Russian away of the Lithuania. So that's that's why this battle happened, and this is a battle of Husaria system, which is a system dedicated to the 17th century battles, mostly at the Eastern and Central Europe. In many of them, Polish winged hussars, in Polish Husaria, played an important role. Same goes to this battle. Winged hussars fought here as well, but we won't see them in this play because this game contains 3 scenarios, and first of them is, that I'm going to play in this movie is not a major battle, but just the beginning, meeting up engagement of some small forces of both sides. For both of them, the most important part is to capture this road that leads through the marsh, as you can see, since it was very important to control this bridge. So, what we have here, the mixed forces of Lithuania and some Tatars and Wolochians, led by Samuel Kmicic, and against them a number of Russian writers, led by Moscow Prince Odin Nashokin. So this is, like I said, a small scenario. This game contains 3 scenarios. 2 of them are quite small and are showing the introductory part of the battle, and we have 3rd main scenario which shows the entire battle. And here we're going to play the first scenario, which is pretty small, as you can see, and not quite long as well, because it has only 5 turns. In this scenario, both sides has only their light cavalry. There are no winged hussars, no dragons, no infantry, no artillery, just some light infantry units here. So let's take a look on the counters first to see how what we have on the counters, because I would like to make this video a kind of tutorial alike to show you the basics of the system itself as well. So let's take a Russian Reiter unit, for example. Reiters were Russia's most modern cavalry because Russian Tsar, after the sad times at the beginning of the 17th century, decided to change his army to stop with cavalry which was mostly feudal, like knights, and turned his cavalry into modern Western-like. So Reiters were such cavalry. It was light cavalry, armed with with guns, with pistols mostly, and also available to fight in the hand-to-hand combat. So what we have here on such counter: first the silhouette, then the name of the town, of the city that unit comes from, it is Tver, and next we have strength. Each unit has 2 strength points, 1 or 2. If unit suffers a loss, we have to flip the counter, and it has strength of 1, and if it suffers another loss, it is eliminated. Next we have a number of movement points, so unit may move 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, like this, or of course it pays a more movement point if it moves through the certain terrain. For example, here we have marshes, so cavalry has to pay 4 movement points to enter marsh hex. Next we have morale. This tells us how well unit acts on the battlefield, how high its morale is. It is important for some tests and also for the combat. And finally we have a star. If unit has a star, it means that it can perform fire combat before hand-to-hand combat. Some units hasn't such a star, as you can see, because here we have a Polish Wolochian cavalry, which was the lightest cavalry of the Polish and Lithuanian forces, so they have no star, so they cannot fire on the enemy. But as you can see, they have lower morale because it's 7, but they are faster because they have 9 movement points. So that's all when it comes to the units. We also have commanders. Some commanders have their leadership rating. This guy has leadership rating of 1, so he can support his troops during the battle with +1 modifier. Some commanders hasn't such a modifier because, as you can see, this Russian prince has 0, so he cannot support. He is not a very good commander, but he still might be used for some other purposes. A thing which is very important in this system is an overall morale of the army. So let's take a look. Here you can see is morale track. Every time when a unit is eliminated, we move morale counter up or down. It depends on which side suffers loss. At the beginning of this scenario, we have to say we have written that this morale counter is placed on the level 1 of Russia. So Russians are attacking, they have higher morale at the beginning of the scenario. If they would eliminate one Polish unit, for example, we would move this counter down, so the Russian morale grows, and the more it grows, the better combat modifier they get. For example, now they have 1, so it means we have +1 column shift for the combat table during each combat. If this counter would reach 2, then Russians would get +2 column shift. But if it moves up, they would have 0, so they wouldn't have any modifier, and if it would get move any up, then Poles would get such modifier. So it is important to remember about it, because each side suffers losses, and these losses might be very important because if you would eliminate many enemy units, then your morale grows and your army acts better in the battlefield. So I think these are basics of the system. Of course, there is much more rules. If we have dragoons, infantry, artillery, winged hussars, but nothing like this in this scenario. So I'm going to stay with everything we have on the board only. I will show you more in the further videos, if I will record them, of course, but for now we can stay with light cavalry only. So let's start the game. Lithuanians have an initiative, so they are moving first, and well, let's start with these guys. As you can see, some of them are starting on the road. It is quite important because when you are on the road, you can move freely without paying for moving through the other kind of terrain, and also you don't have to pay for making any front changes. For example, I can move 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. While normally I would have to pay every time unit changes its facing. But because of the road, they doesn't have to. Now they are starting on the marsh and they want to enter the road. So they have to pay 4 movement points to move on the marsh hex, and now they are moving down the road. So 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So that's for them. And now for these dudes. Like I said before, the most important part of this scenario is to capture this area, this road. So let's start moving them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Now see that I have to pay 1 movement point to change my facing. 7. And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 7. Okay, that's all. As you can see, I left 1 hex behind these guys free. You may ask why. Because sometimes when the combat happens, you are forced to make withdraw, and when you can't withdraw, you have to suffer 1 loss. Also, I think this is something I should mention here. It is about stacking. In this system, you can stack no more than 2 strength points on the 1 hex when it comes to the cavalry. So you can have 1 unit of the 2 strength points on the hex, or you can have 2 units, each of them 1 strength point. For example, like here and like here. But you can't have 2 units with more than 2 strength points on the 1 hex. And this is also true for the movement. I cannot move my unit through the hex with another unit, and I cannot retreat through or on such a hex. So that's all when it comes to the Lithuanian phase. And now we can move to the Lithuanian movement phase. We don't have any combat because there are no enemy units in the front zones of our units. So we can start moving Russians. We have 2 groups of Russian Reiter here. Maybe I will zoom off a bit. Okay, and we can start moving them. 1, they are on the road. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Leader has 10 points, so he moves here. And now they 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 7. 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Oh ho ho, I would love to. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So that was all when it comes to the Russian movement. And now you can see there is 1 Lithuanian unit in the zone in the front zone of the Russian unit. This means that we have to resolve a combat of these 2 units. Oh my. Okay, that should be better. So first, because they both have star, they can fire on each other, and also they are on the marsh, but they are fighting on the road. If they wouldn't be on the road, they would have to have their strength halved, because when a cavalry unit is on the marsh, it has its strength halved. But since they are fighting on the road, they don't have to. So first Russians, and maybe I should show you. Here are tables for the fire combat, for the cavalry and for the infantry. As you can guess, infantry is much more effective when it comes to the fire combat. Cavalry is less effective. So Russians have 2 strength points, so they are firing with the column with the verse of 2, and I have to make 2d6 roll. There are no modifiers in this situation, so I rolled 7, and this is nothing. And now same for Lithuanians, they are firing with 2, and I rolled 3, so it's nothing. So we can resolve hand-to-hand combat. Each side has 2 strength points, so it is 1-to-1 in the combat table. Maybe I should move now to the combat table. It is here. And now Russians have +1 on the morale track. Like I showed you before, it is +1. So because of that, they have 1 column shift for the 2-to-1. So next I have to compare units' own morale. Russians have 8 and Lithuanians have 8, so there is no shift for the morale difference. So I make a roll, it is 9, and I check the result in the 2-to-1 column. It is 9, so it is 1-to-1, -1, -1. So each side suffers 1 step loss. And that was our first battle in this game, and this concludes first turn of the game, of this scenario as well. Alright, so we can start turn 2. Lithuanian side has initiative, so let's start moving here. I have Tatars here, and I'm going to make a move with them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and that's where they're going to finish their movement, because I'm not going to move any further. They have, as you can see, a smaller morale. It is 7, so it's better to keep them where they are. Also, they are able to fire on the enemy during enemy's movement. This is the only unit that has such a skill, so it is better to keep them. And now I'm moving this commander here, and this light cavalry, very light cavalry here, 1 movement point, and then here 4 movement points. So I have spent totally 5 movement points, and I'll be able to join this fight even if my strength will be halved. Alright, I'm going to move these guys here. No further, and now I am going to move these guys who are just approaching the battlefield. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8 and 8, and they are following them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8. So that's all when it comes to the Lithuanian movement, and now we can resolve combat. First, our units are able to fire on each other. They have a strength of 1 each, so their fire will be less effective. And now Russians are firing first, 6, and now Lithuanians, 6, so these are both miss. And next we have to check our strength. We have 4, 2, 1, because they are on the march. 1, so Lithuanians have total strength of 2, Russians have 1, so we have 2 to 1 odds, and now we have +1 because of the Russian morale track. So we have 1 to 1. Next we have +1 because of the commander, so we have 2 to 1. And next we have to check units morale. These guys have 8, these guys have 7, and these guys have 8. And because this unit has one strength, and this has 1 strength as well, so we can use morale of 8. If they would use 2 strength points and they would use 1 strength point, then we would use morale of 7. But since they have same morale points, same strength during this combat, we can use morale of any of these units. So we have 2 to 1 for Lithuanians, and this is 9. 9 in the 2 to 1 is -1, -1, so each side suffers 1 step loss. So I'm going to weaken this unit, because if they would suffer another loss, then they would be eliminated, and Russians have no choice but to lose this Raita unit, and because of that Lithuanians are able to capture this hex as well. So that was also because Russians lost 1 unit. I have to move their morale counter on the track 1 step up, and this is an important thing, because I will show you, because it was on the 1 and now it is on the 0. So starting with the next turn, Russians won't get morale modifier, or maybe they will get, we will see, because if they would eliminate any of the Lithuanian units during their combat phase, they might make this counter return. But till the end of this turn they still have +1. Alright, so let's make Russians movement. First 2 because of the crossing the stream, and 4 because of the march, so they spend 6 movement points of 7. Next I'm moving them here. I cannot move any further because I paid 2 movement points for crossing the stream and 4 movement points for entering marsh. And they are moving here. Commander is here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And they are here. Okay, that's all when it comes to the Russian movement phase, and now we can resolve Russian combat. Russians are attacking in one place only, here, because you have to attack all enemy units that are in your front zone. Front zone are 3 hexes in front of the unit. Okay, so Russians may attack these Lithuanians with these two Raita units. These guys are attacking through the road, so they have their strength normal, but they are attacking. They are on the march, so they have their strength halved. So they have 2 and 1. So both units have star, so they may fire together. So they are firing with the strength of 3, and I am making a roll. They rolled 4, so they missed. And Lithuanians are able to fire back on them. They are firing with strength of 1 and attacking and firing on them. Notice that we don't use commander's leadership modifier for fire combat. And I rolled 7. It is in the cavalry fire table, it is a miss. Okay, so next we have to resolve combat. Russians have 3 strength points, Lithuanians have 1, so we have 3 to 1, +1 because of the morale track, and -1 because of the Polish Lithuanian commander, so we have 3 to 1. I rolled 11. My god, this is bad. This is bad for Russians. 11 in the 3 to 1 means -1. One attacking unit suffers 1 loss. So I'm going to weaken this one Russian unit. Okay, and this concludes turn 2. And since Russians didn't manage to destroy any Lithuanian unit, then starting with the next turn, the morale modifier will be 0. So we are up to the turn 3. Alright. I am moving these Tatars 1, 2, and now I'm able to fire with my crossbow on these Russians. I have strength of 2, so I roll a die, and if I would roll 10, 11 or 12, Russians suffer 1 step loss. I rolled 3, so it is an epic miss, so nothing happens. I'm moving this Wolochian cavalry here, and I am moving this cavalry here. I am able to do so because they have 9 movement points, so they have 4, 8. Alright, so my goal, as you can see, is to keep Russians away of this part of the road. I'm not sure if I will able to drive them away out of this stream, but I will do my best. And that's for all. That's everything when it comes to now. And also, I have these guys here who are coming to help. So let's see if they can. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Oh my god, they won't be able to reach the battle now. So, no, they can... Sorry, I have to check if I'm 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay, I'm going to leave this hex unoccupied, because if these guys would have to retreat, I would rather let them retreat here, because it would be safe road of retreat. If they wouldn't be able to retreat, they would have to suffer 1 step loss. And this is not good, because they are already weakened. So that's all. And now for these 2 guys. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And that's all when it comes to the Polish movement phase. And now we are starting Polish combat phase. Sorry, Lithuanian. I still forget that we are fighting in this particular scenario. We are fighting with Lithuanians only. Alright. Starting here, we have a combat to resolve, because this Russian unit is in the front zone of these Tatars, so these Tatars have to attack these Russians. Russians have a star, so they may fire with their small weapons, and they have 6, so they missed. And Tatars don't have a star, so they are not able to use pistols or guns or anything like this. They were able to fire with their crossbow during their movement phase. Alright, and now they have 1 because their strength is halved because they are on the march. Same goes to Russians, they have 1, so we have 1 to 1. But Russian morale is 8 and Tatars have morale of 7. So we have +1 in favor of Russians. So we have we had odds of 1 to 1, but because of this morale difference we have 1 to 2. Notice that we don't use morale track, because a morale track is currently on the 0. Okay, so I make a roll. It is 4. It is nothing. maybe I should. I'm not going to move any every time, because it would be pointless, but I rolled 4, and this is such a symbol. This means that nothing happened. Both sides are fighting each other, but none of them forced enemy to retreat, and none of them suffered any significant losses. And now here we have same situation. Russians have star, so they may fire. 6, they missed. And now we have 1 and 1, so they have strength of 1, but Russian morale is 1 point higher, so these Wolochians have -1, and because of that we'll be using 1 and 1 to 2 column. I rolled 7, so it is A1. This means that attacker has to retreat 1 hex. So I am retreating here. And sometimes when your unit is forced to retreat, it may disperse. There is a battle dispersal table here, and we can check. Our unit was a cavalry with morale of 7, and it had to retreat 1 hex, so it doesn't have to roll. Okay, so Russians may pursue it, they do that, and now here. This Lithuanian cavalry attacks this Russian Reiter. So first we're going to make a fire combat. Russians have a strength of 2. Oh my! I rolled 11. This is extremely lucky for Russians, because 11 and the strength of 2 is -1. So a Lithuanian unit suffers 1 step loss, and because it already it is already weakened, then it is eliminated. Because of that, we move morale counter one step down in the favor of Russians, and Russian unit is able to take ground which was occupied by the enemy. And next I have to make a roll for commander. If I would roll 12, he is eliminated. I rolled 10, so he's fine, and he moves to the nearest friendly unit. So here. Alright, and that's the end of the Lithuanian combat phase, and we can move to Russians now. Starting with Russians, this unit enters this hex, and now they might be sprayed with arrows by these Tatars. I have to make a roll, and I rolled 11. Since it's 11, they suffer 1 step loss. And now here, they are in this zone of control of these guys, because zone of control covers your 3 front hexes, and when you are in the zone of control, you have to stay there or retreat. So I'm going to make movement here, because I am able to I am leaving this unit zone of control. It covers 1, 2, 3 hexes, and I may move here. Next Russian Reiter unit moves here. I'm going to keep commander alone, because you can see his morale, his leadership factor is 0, so he can't support his units actually in combat, but he is vulnerable to be killed during this combat, so it's better to keep them away. And of course there is still some good side of keeping your unit with commander, because your unit cannot disperse if it is with commander, but it's better to keep them safe. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And these Reiters are moving here. So that's all when it comes to the Russian movement, and now we have to resolve combat. As you can see, this is a very simple and straightforward scenario, without much place for maneuvers, for any charges, counter charges. rather simple fight for the ground scenario, which is easy to learn the basics of the system, but not much if you want to have some real taste of big battle. Okay, these Russian Raitas are attacking this Polish Wolochian cavalry, so they are firing with a strength of 1, 5, they missed. Lithuanians doesn't have stars, so they cannot fire, so they have 1, and Lithuanians also have 1, so we have a strength of 1-to-1 odds. Russian morale is 8, Wolochians have morale of 7, so they have Russians have morale advantage, so they have 2-to-1. And this is, well, not very good. It is -1. Attacking unit suffers 1 step loss. So Russians are eliminated. And the defender might take the ground. Now this Russian unit fires on Tatars with the strength of 1, 8. It is, I think, a miss, but I have to check. Yes, it is a miss. And now they have strength of 1. They have also strength of 1, so we have 1-to-1. And they have higher morale, so they have 1-to-2. It is 8 in 2-to-1. Sorry, it was 2-to-1. It is nothing. So both sides stay where they are. Next, here. First they are firing on the enemy. They have 1, and they also have 1. You may ask why. Because they are on the road, you may say, so they should have 2. No, because they are on the marsh, there's a road, but they are attacking not an enemy unit which is on the road, but enemy unit which is on the marsh. So they literally has to leave the road and attack through the marsh. So they have their strength halved as well. So they have 1 and 1, so they are firing with the strength of 2. It is a miss. And Wolochians have strength of 1 and they have no star, so they cannot fire back. So we have 2-to-1, 2 against 1, so we have 2-to-1, and because of the morale they have 3-to-1, because they have 8 and Wolochians have 7, and because of the commander it is 2-to-1. 3, this is quite a good result. This is B2, so defender has to retreat 2 hexes. 1, 2, and Russians are able to take the ground. And also, because this unit has to retreat 2 hexes, we have to make a dispersal check. They have morale of 7, they are cavalry, and they had to retreat 2 hexes. So if I would roll 1 on the 1d6, they would disperse. I'm making a roll, and I rolled 1. So they are dispersed. What it means? We are removing this unit, and we are placing it on the scatter table. It is here. It may return in the next turn on the hex which is adjacent to the hex with its commander, only if such hex is free from enemy units. So I'm moving this. I have to check if commander wasn't eliminated by accident. So he wasn't. So I'm placing him here, and I think that's all when it comes to the Russian combat phase. Yes, that's all. So, as you can see, Russians managed to make their way and clear some of the road hexes from the Lithuanian units, and they are slowly gaining an advantage, even if they lost more units than Lithuanians so far. Alright, we can start with the turn 4, and Lithuanians are making their movement first. I'm spending 1 movement point to fire with my arrows on these Russians, with these Tatars. It is 5, so it is a miss. Okay, and next I'm making my movement. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and I cannot move any further. This commander will join them, and these guys 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So that's my movement, and now I can resolve a combat. First, here I'm attacking this Russian Raita with these Tatars and these Wolochians. Alright, so Russians are able to fire on these Tatars only because these Wolochians are out of their front hexes, so they can fire on Tatars only, and they are firing with the strength of 1. Oh, I think they might even hit. 10 with a strength of 1. No, it is a miss. It would be a hit if they would have a strength of 2, but since they have a strength of 1, it is a miss. Okay, and now we have to resolve a combat. So they have strength of 1, they both have a strength of 1 as well, so we have 2 against 1, so it is 2 to 1. Russian morale is 8, while they both have morale of 7, so there is +1 for Russians, so it is 1 to 1. And now, because there is +1 on the morale track as well, for Russians, we have another column shift in the favor of the defender, so there is 1 to 2 for Russians. So let's make a roll. It is 5. 5 in the 1 to 2, it is 1, minus 1, minus 1. So each side suffers 1 step loss. And that's all. Next we have a combat here. Poles are in the Lithuanians are in the clear terrain, I believe. Yes, this is clear terrain, so they have a strength of 2, and they may fire with a strength of 2, and they scored a hit on Russians, and Russians are firing with the strength of 1 as well. Strength of 1 because they are on the marsh and they are attacking through the marsh, so it is 4, so it is a miss. And next we have to resolve a combat. Lithuanians have a strength of 1 because they are attacking on the enemy which is on the marsh, and they are not attacking through the road, so they have strength of 1. Russians have a strength of 1 as well. Their morale is equal, so they have 8 and 8, and the Russians have +1 because of the morale track, so we have 1 to 2 in the favor of the Russians. I rolled 8. 8 in the 1 to 2 is attacker retreats 1 hex and suffers 1 step loss. And Russians might take ground. Next we have a combat here. Lithuanians are firing on the enemy. They missed. And now Russians are firing back. They missed. And next we have to resolve a combat. We have strength of 1 because we are not attacking down the road against 1, so it is 1 to 1. It is +1 because of the commander and -1 because of the morale track, so we have 1 to 1. And I rolled 3, which is a good result. It is B1 -1, so defender has to retreat 1 hex and suffer 1 step loss. So Russians are suffering 1 step loss, so they are eliminated. And Lithuanians might take a ground if they want to, but they doesn't want to. They would rather move here, but they cannot because they can move only on the hex when from which defending unit was only on the hex where eliminated unit was. So it is not possible for them to move here, only here. And finally, one last combat. Lithuanians are on the clear terrain, so they may fire with the strength of 2. They rolled 3, so it is a miss. Russians are firing with the strength of 1. They roll 4, it is a miss. and now they have strength of 1, they have strength of 1, so we have 1 and 1 against 1. This is 1 to 1 odds, and +1 for Russians because of the morale track. I rolled 5. 5 in the 1 to 2, it's -1, -1. So this is a very bloody battle. Alright, so that's all when it comes to the Lithuanian combat phase. Oh, one more thing. I said before that at the beginning of the movement phase you can introduce one of your units, which half of your units which were scattered. And so I can place this unit here because my commander was here, and I can place units from dispersal table only in the one hex from the commander. My commander was originally here at the beginning of the turn phase, of the movement phase, so I placed them here. Okay, and now Russians. One, two, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and now here. Now this is going to be a lot of combat here, but well, let's see if we can make it. Okay, so I'm going to start here. First a fire combat, first for Lithuanians. It is 6, so it is a miss. For Russians it is 8, so it is a miss. So they have 1 to 1, so it is 1 to 1 odds, with +1 in the favor of Russians because of the morale track, so we have 2 to 1. And I rolled 6. 6 in the 2 to 1 is B1. So defender has to retreat 1 hex, and attacker might take a ground. Next here, I'm attacking these Lithuanians with these 2 Russian units. They are attacking down the road, so they have strength of 2, and they are not attacking down the road, so they have strength of 1, because there is a marsh all over here. So we have 2 and 1, it is 3, so I am firing with the strength of 3. 7, it is a miss, I believe. Yes, it is a miss, and Lithuanians are firing with the strength of 2 on them. 8, this is a miss as well. Okay, so I have 3 against 2, so it is 1 to 1. Russians have +1 because of the morale track, and Lithuanians have +1 because of their commander, so we have 1 to 1. And I rolled 5. 5, it is B1 result, so defender has to retreat 1 hex, but they cannot. All the hex in their possible retreat way are occupied by other units, so I have to. They have to suffer 1 step loss because of that. Okay, next combat is going on here. Russians have a strength of 1, and they are firing on these Lithuanians. 9, it is a miss, and this and that Lithuanian unit fires on them, so they have 2. 10, is it a hit? Yes, it is a hit, so Russian unit is eliminated. And because of that, Lithuanians might take the ground. The next battle goes here. They have strength of 1, and they are firing on these Tatars. 9, is it a hit? No, because when you fire with the strength of 1, you have to roll 11 or 12 to hit only. So they have strength of 1 against strength of 1, so we have 1 and 1, +1 because of the morale difference, and +1 because of the morale track, so they have 3 to 1. it is 8. In the 3 to 1, it is -1 and b1. So attacker suffers 1 step loss and the defender has to retreat 1 hex. And they have these Tatars have morale of 7, so they don't have to roll for dispersal. And the last combat, 2 and 1, so they are firing on these Wolochians with the strength of 3, and they rolled 9 with the strength of 3 for the cavalry. It is 1 step loss, so Wolochians are eliminated. And I make a morale counter shift, and that's all when it comes to the Russian combat phase, and we are moving to the last remaining turn. Okay, let's resolve turn 5, which is the last turn of this game, of this scenario. And I am starting with Lithuanians. I am moving them here. These Tatars are firing with their crossbow on these Russians. Oh, they were very lucky. They rolled 11, so Russians suffer 1 step loss, so they are eliminated. And my Tatars are able to take the ground. And next I think that's all I can do. So I can start resolving a combat. First I'm firing on these Russians here with the strength of 1 because I am on the march and the Russians are not. They are lucky. So I'm firing with the strength of 1. Oh, it is 10. Oh, it is not enough. I would hit with a result of 11. So I have 1 and 1 against 1. So it is 2 to 1. And there is no modifier from the morale track because it is on the 0. So now we have 2 to 1 odds. I rolled 7. It is b1. So defender has to retreat 1 hex, and they cannot. You may ask why. Because this hex is in the front zone of this unit, Lithuanian unit. This hex is in the front zone of this Lithuanian unit. So both hexes are in the zone of controls of enemy units, and you cannot retreat in the enemy unit's zone of control. So this unit suffers 1 step loss, and because of that it is eliminated. And because of that, Lithuanians are able to take the ground. And next combat is here. I am firing on them. 6, it is a miss. They are firing on me in return. Oh, and they scored a hit because it's 11. So Lithuanian unit is eliminated. And I have to make a roll for commander. He survived, and I'm placing him here. And Russians are taking the ground. Next, here. I am firing with the 2, and +1, it's 3. It is 11, so it is a hit, I believe, in the verse of 3. No, it is dispersal. This is automatic dispersal, so this unit is scattered, and it is placed on the scatter table, and Lithuanians are taking the ground. And finally here, one last combat. Tatars, first Russians are firing on the attacking Tatars. They missed. So we have 1 against 1, so it is 1 to 1 odds. Russians have morale of 8, Tatars have morale of 7, so we have 1 to 2. And it is 4, it is quite a good result, I believe. Yes, it is nothing. So both sides stay where they are. So that's all when it comes to the Lithuanians. As you can see, Russians suffered very heavy losses. This is interesting because even if they managed to capture some of the road hexes, they are unable to keep them now because their units are weakened and they cannot do much. Okay, so what I'm going to do: 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I'll do my best, and I think that's all. I cannot do much. Oh, and I have and I can place this scattered unit in the next turn. Sorry, in the next turn. Okay, so let's resolve last combat in this game. Starting here, they are firing on these Tatars. 8, it is a miss, so we have 1 to 1 with +1 because of the morale difference. So I have 2 to 1. For Russians, it is 5. It is B1, so defender is retreating. Next here, I have 2, and I am firing on the Lithuanians with the strength of 2. It is a miss. They are firing back with the strength of 2 as well. It is a miss. So we have 2 against 2, and no modifiers. It is 8. Attacker suffers 1 step loss. And I have to make a roll for commander loss. He survived. And the last combat goes here. They are attacking these Lithuanians. They have firepower of 2. It is a miss. Lithuanians are firing back. 10 with the strength of 2. It is a hit. So Russians are suffering 1 step loss. And now they have 1 against 2, so it is 2 to 1, 1 to 2. And because of enemy commander is 1 to 3. Oh my. This is going to be very bad for Russians. 8. Russian unit has to make 1 hex retreat, and it is scattered. This is an interesting result, because you have to make your retreat first, and then, if you survived, you are scattered. But again, they cannot retreat, because this hex is in the Lithuanian zone of control. Same goes to this hex. So they have to suffer 1 step loss, and since they cannot, because they already suffered, so they are eliminated. And the Lithuanians are able to take the ground. So, that's all when it comes to this scenario, because it takes 5 turns, and we already finished turn 5, so we have to count victory points. Victory points are for 1, 2 for Lithuanians, and 1, 2, 3 for Russians. So, even despite the heavy losses, Russians managed to win, but it was costly victory, because you can see here are Russian units which were lost in this battle. And these are, sorry, I should move my camera a bit, and these are Lithuanian losses. So, Russians were victorious, but it was costly victory. It is advised to play further scenarios with the morale level on the morale track same as the end of this scenario. It makes the other scenarios more interesting, because you play first these 2 small scenarios, and then you play a whole battle, since all of them takes place one after another. So you can make your morale track higher or lower with this smaller scenario, and then use it with the big battle, which is quite a cool option. So, that's all for this video. I hope I was helpful. I think I might do a video about second small scenario someday as well. So thank you for watching and see you again next time.